The legacy food system is not a delivery mechanism for nutrients. It is a delivery mechanism for metabolic debt. In the landscape of 2026, the lords of the grid have realized that a population with high biological voltage is impossible to govern. They don't need to ban your descent if they can simply rot your prefrontal cortex through your gut. The soft man eats what is convenient, approved, and marketed. He believes the label. The architect, however, identifies the biological sabotage hidden in the standard supply chain. He realizes that every meal is either a sovereign investment or an internal sabotage designed to lower his execution velocity. Let's dismantle the safety standards illusion. Agencies like the FDA or EFSA are not protective barriers. They are regulatory thresholds for slow poisoning. They define how much industrial slop a human can consume before they drop dead too quickly to be productive. The state wants you chronically ill but functionally taxable. They want you in a state of low-grade systemic inflammation. This is the inflammation tax. When your body is fighting off seed oils, synthetic dyes, and endocrine-disrupting pesticides, your neural bandwidth is halved. You aren't tired because you worked hard. You are tired because your body is performing an internal cleanup operation on the chemical garbage you just swallowed. The first move in identifying biological sabotage is the annihilation of seed oils. This is the most successful bioweapon in human history. Industrial oils like soybean, canola, and corn oil are non-native lipids. They are highly unstable and prone to oxidation inside your cell membranes. When you build your brain out of these oils, you are literally building a rusty processor. Your signal-to-noise ratio collapses. The soft man thinks he has ADHD or brain fog. The architect knows he has lipid malfunction. He executes a total purge of these fats, replacing them with ancestral tallow, grass-fed butter, and cold-pressed olive oil. He is re-insulating his nervous system with high-conductance materials. He is upgrading his biological wiring. Furthermore, we must address the estrogenic siege. The modern water and food supply is saturated with xenoestrogens, chemical mimics that hijack your hormonal receptors. Bisphenols, BPA, in plastics, phthalates in approved packaging, and herbicides like atrazine are hormonal saboteurs. They are designed to lower testosterone, the hormone of risk, aggression, and spatial logic, and increase passivity and emotional volatility. The state wants a docile workforce, and docility is a hormonal state. The architect practices endocrine isolation. He drinks only glass-bottled or reverse osmosis water. He eliminates plastic contact with his food. He is protecting his androgenic reserve as if it were his private key. Without your hormonal fire, you are just a biological serf. The soft man is addicted to information-dead food. He eats processed grains and refined sugars that provide empty calories. These foods provide a dopamine spike, followed by a metabolic crash. This cycle makes you predictable. A man in a sugar crash is a man who can be bought with cheap comfort. The architect eats information-dense fuel. He consumes wild-caught organs, pasture-raised marrow, and fermented probiotics. These foods carry the genetic instructions of vitality and resilience. He isn't eating for fullness. He is eating for epigenetic signaling. He is telling his genes to stay in hunter mode while the rest of the world is in cattle mode. We must also talk about the glyphosate grid. Most approved produce is saturated with glyphosate, a chelator that strips minerals from your body and destroys your gut microbiome. Your gut is your second brain. It produces 95% of your serotonin. If your internal ecosystem is nuked by glyphosate, your emotional stability vanishes. You become anxious and fragmented. The architect utilizes sovereign sourcing. He builds direct relationships with regenerative farmers who operate outside the industrial dragnet. He bypasses the supermarket to ensure his microbiome is a fortress of diversity. He knows that a resilient gut is the foundation of a resilient will. The architect understands the sabotage of the senses. Modern food is hyper-palatable, engineered by flavor scientists to bypass your satiety signals. It hacks your brain's reward center. The soft man is a slave to the taste bud. The architect practices sensory reset. He performs fast protocols to recalibrate his dopamine threshold. He trains his brain to find reward in nutritional density rather than chemical simulation. He has exited the dopamine loop of the industrial food system. He is the master of his hunger, not the victim of his cravings. Part 1 is the biological hard fork. Stop viewing food as groceries and start viewing it as hardware compatibility. If the grid provides the food, the grid owns your metabolic output. The lords want you inflamed, estrogenic, and foggy. buggy. The architect chooses to be lean, androgenic, and sharp. Your diet is not a lifestyle choice. It is your primary defense system against the totalitarian final boss. If you can't control what goes into your mouth, you will never control what comes out of your bunker. The state doesn't need to imprison you if it can chemically neuter your ambition. In the 2026 landscape, the lords of the grid have perfected the art of subclinical castration. They have flooded the environment with endocrine-disrupting chemicals, EDCs, that don't kill you, but they effectively turn down the volume of your masculine drive. The soft man is a walking bag of estrogenic signals. He is soft, prone to anxiety, and physically incapable of the high-torque execution required for sovereignty. The architect, however, constructs an endocrine fortress. He realizes that his hormonal profile is the signal strength of his will, and he defends it with the same intensity he defends his cloud bunker. Let's dismantle the hormonal health illusion. The official medical standards for testosterone have been steadily declining for decades. What was considered low in the 1980s is now considered normal. The state has normalized weakness to match the degraded population. The architect rejects the standard range. He aims for ancestral optimization. He understands that testosterone is the hormone of sovereignty. It drives risk-taking, spatial logic, and the aggressive calm needed to navigate gray zone markets. If your T levels are in the standard ghetto, you are biologically programmed to seek security and compliance. You are a beta node in the state's network. The first move in building the endocrine fortress is the Great Plastic Purge. Plastics are not inert. They are leaching vessels for phthalates and bisphenols, BPA/BPS, which are molecular mimics of estrogen. When you eat from plastic containers or drink from plastic bottles, you are literally inhaling female reproductive signals. The architect moves to a non-polymer perimeter. He uses glass, stainless steel, and cast iron. He understands that microplastics in the blood are data corruption for the endocrine system. He is cleaning the line. He doesn't allow the grid's polymers to touch his biological fuel. He is shielding his receptors from the estrogenic noise of the industrial world. Furthermore, we must address the circadian rhythm as a hormonal pump. The soft man lives in a state of eternal twilight, exposed to blue light at 2 a.m. and artificial gloom at 10 a.m. This spectral pollution nukes his melatonin-cortisol axis. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is the enemy of testosterone. When you are chronically desynced from the sun, your cortisol is perpetually high, and your testosterone is cannibalized to produce it. The architect practices luminosity discipline. He views early morning sunlight as a hormonal command. He uses red light therapy to stimulate his Leydig cells and blue blocking protocols to ensure his sleep is a hormonal deep dive. He is clocking his biology to the sovereign rhythm of the earth, not the fluorescent rhythm of the office. The soft man is terrified of saturated fats and cholesterol. He has been programmed by state science to believe that animal fats are poisons. The architect knows that cholesterol is the raw material of power. Every sovereign hormone in your body, testosterone, DHEA, androstenedione, is synthesized from cholesterol. By starving yourself of grass-fed tallow, egg yolks, and red meat, you are cutting the supply line to your own hormonal factory. The architect eats like a predatory lord. He provides his body with a surplus of building blocks, so his endocrine engine is never throttled by scarcity. He isn't dieting, he is manufacturing drive. We must also talk about the chemical sequestration of toxins. The modern man is a bioaccumulator of heavy metals, lead, mercury, and aluminum, which act as metabolic brakes. These metals sit in your Leydig cells and hypothalamus, disrupting the sovereign signal from your brain to your gonads. The architect utilizes tactical detoxification. He uses activated charcoal, infrared saunas, and chelation protocols to flush the system. He is descaling the pipes of his hormonal infrastructure. He knows that a clean engine runs with higher voltage. He is removing the grid's residue from his biological core. The architect understands the psychological feedback loop of biology. Sovereignty is a bidirectional street. When you act like a sovereign, your testosterone rises. When your testosterone is high, you act like a sovereign. The soft man is trapped in a submission loop. He complies. His T levels drop. He feels more fear. He complies more. The architect breaks the loop with intentional conflict. He engages in high-stakes competition, heavy resistance training, and uncomfortable truth-telling. He is priming his endocrine system through behavioral dominance. He is telling his body that he is the architect of his environment, and his body responds by producing the chemistry of leadership. Part 2 is the hormonal hard fork. Stop managing your health and start engineering your authority. Your hormones are the operating system of your will. If the grid can write the code of your hormones, they own your actions. The lords want you passive, anxious, and soft. The architect chooses to be aggressive, calm, and hard. The endocrine fortress is the armor of the sovereign mind. Without it, your philosophy is just mental masturbation. With it, your intent becomes reality. The state's ultimate goal is to keep you in a state of metabolic entrapment. In the landscape of 2026, the most effective tax isn't the one on your bank account. It is the inflammation tax on your cellular energy. Every time you consume the approved clop, you trigger a systemic immune response that drains your neural voltage. The soft man lives in a state of perpetual low-grade crisis. His body is so busy fighting off the chemical sabotage that he has no energy left for strategic expansion. The architect, however, completes his biological perimeter with the metabolic shield. He realizes that a body with zero inflammation is a body that can out-process the entire grid. Let's dismantle the chronic disease myth. Most of what the grid's medical system calls aging or genetics is actually just accumulated biological friction. The lords of the grid want your mitochondria, the power plants of your cells, to be leaky and inefficient. They want you running on dirty fuel, glucose and seed oils, because it produces reactive oxygen species, ROS, that damage your DNA and cloud your cognitive clarity. The architect shifts his metabolism to a high-octane state. He utilizes ketogenic priming and intermittent fasting to force his body into autophagy, a biological self-cleaning mode where the cell eats its own defective components. He is purging the system at the atomic level. He is building a biological shield that makes him immune to the brain fog and lethargy of the masses. The first move in the metabolic shield is the annihilation of the glucose spike. The state's food pyramid is a diabetes blueprint. By keeping your insulin levels perpetually high, they ensure that your brain is addicted to the next hit. A man on a sugar roller coaster is a man who is emotionally volatile and easily manipulated. The architect practices glycemic sovereignty. He maintains stable blood sugar through metabolic flexibility. He has trained his body to burn fat, the clean-burning fuel of the sovereign, and store glucose only for high-intensity strikes. He is a hybrid engine that doesn't crash when the grid's Snickers bar isn't available. He has achieved energy autonomy. Furthermore, we must address the anti-inflammatory protocol. In 2026, health is silence. It is the absence of internal noise. The architect uses ancestral biohacks to silence the inflammatory signal. He utilizes cold therapy, ice baths, to trigger cold shock proteins that flush the lymphatic system and kill systemic inflammation. He uses grounding to discharge the electromagnetic static accumulated from the grid's 5G mesh. He is earthing his biology. He understands that a shielded body is a quiet body. When your internal noise is zero, your signal-to-noise ratio for high-level decision-making becomes infinite. You see the market gaps because your brain isn't distracted by a leaky gut. We are removing the internal friction. We are maximizing the power-to-weight ratio. The soft man relies on big pharma to manage his symptoms. He is a subscription model human. Every pill he takes is a compliance key handed to the state. The architect utilizes sovereign pharmacopoeia. He uses natural chelators like shilajit, anti-inflammatory alkaloids like curcumin, and mitochondrial shuttles like NAD+. He is upgrading his internal hardware without the state's prescription. He treats his biology as a proprietary technology stack. He is hard-coding his resilience so that he doesn't need the grid's life support. He is indestructible by design. We must also talk about the biological exit. As the official health system collapses into rationed care and algorithmic treatment, the architect has already exited the medical grid. He has his own diagnostic tools, his own sovereign supply of essential nutrients, and his own tribe of bio-operators. He is not a patient. He is a biologist of his own perimeter. He knows that in the metabolic war, the person who can self-heal is the person who can outlast the totalitarian final boss. He has cannibalized the best of modern science and ancient wisdom to create a biological moat around his life. The final component of the metabolic shield is the psychological superiority of the uninflamed. When you are free from biological sabotage, you experience a state of predatory calm. The soft men around you are panicking. Their inflamed brains are screaming danger at every headline. You, however, are metabolically silent. You can think 3 steps steps ahead because your limbic system isn't hijacked by toxic debris. You are the quiet professional in a room of screaming children. This calm is your ultimate leverage. You don't react, you execute. Part 3 is the biological assertion. Stop fighting sickness and start cultivating power. Your metabolism is the base layer of your sovereignty. If your cells are compliant, your mind will be compliant. The lords of the grid want you weak, tired, and dependent. The architect chooses to be robust, energetic, and self-sustained. The metabolic shield is the final filter. It ensures that only pure energy reaches your neocortex. The sabotage is identified. The fortress is built. The shield is active.